Traders, this is Ezron. Welcome to my Bastion. This is the start of a new multi-part video series for me about Clanboss Unkillable teams. I've recently started getting serious about building mine, and it turned out to be a lot more nuanced than I expected when I started to do this. So I figured I would record what I did for everyone and post it so people can maybe learn from my experience and or make the transition into an unkillable team a little bit easier. I think the first thing I'm going to do today is talk about my existing Clanboss team once we get into there. So this is the result from my team this morning. If you look here, number 18. Generally how it works in our clan is you take no more than one void hit in the morning, and then when the clan boss gets into affinity, then you do the rest of your keys in order to get the chest that you're able to get. So I run right now a pretty standard 1-to-1 speed tuned counterattack team where Skull Crusher is my counterattack champion, Tayrel is defense down, Frozen Banshee is my main damage dealer, then I get in Razin for defense down and weaken, and Warlord does a combination of shielding and debuff extension on Clanboss. This morning I did just over 25 million damage on the Void boss. That's pretty good for this team. I normally do like 22, 23 million with a range of like 21 to 26. So this is, a strong, slightly above average showing. But one of the reasons why I want to build the unkillable team is that, the clan boss went to Spirit Affinity today, and this team does really terrible against Spirit Affinity. I'm going to run a second key right now, and you'll see that I'm probably going to do it in the range of like 15 million, which means that, on Spirit Affinity days, I'm, high 4, maybe low 5 key to get the Transcendent chest versus on Force or Magic Affinity, a relatively straightforward 3 key. So give me a second to fire up this one, and I'll show the results from one spirit key for this team. So that run was a 15 million key, which brings my total after 2 keys to 40 million. So this, in theory, today still I can do a 4 key when I am on Spirit Affinity, but it's not super reliable. I think the big problems with this team are, especially on Spirit, is the speed debuff, of course, messes everyone up. Then Skull Crusher and Razin, being Force Affinity, get hit really hard with everything. So to fix all these problems and to hopefully spend fewer keys and then let me also spend some time on Nightmare every day, I'm going to work on my new unkillable team. Now I'm going to go through the champions right now and talk about some of the intentional choices I've made, and then future videos will go into their gearing and builds and then trying to make it work. So what I'm going for is the easy Maneater unkillable team, in which, of course, Maneater is their primary player. He has to be 240 or 241 speed. And I currently have him exactly at 241 speed with no jewelry on. So I will put in, depending on what I need for specific tuning, appropriate jewelry. I'm expecting that he's really there to give the unkillable and the block debuffs buff. But if I can get him to do some damage as well with relatively high crit rate and reasonable crit damage, that's great. Then the next person on the team will be Painkeeper. And her main purpose on the team is combat tactics, which lowers the cooldown of Ancient Blood on Maneater so you can keep it up more. She needs to be 218 speed, so when I get the build done there, I'm within glyphing distance, but also putting on a banner with speed substats will get me to where I have to go. And this will take probably a little bit of tuning once I get my stun target built. And here's where I'm making intentionally a slightly different choice than I think is normally recommended, in that I'm trying to make my stun target be Bulwark. And he right now is in the sparring pit and will be done to level 60 in an hour or two. I actually found this build to be very difficult because of the speed requirements. The speed needs to be in like the 111 to 117 range, and I was able to get him to 113 speed, which, considering I've spent the last year throwing away any gear I get without speed substats, was a little bit difficult. That's a lot of the reason why you see an unmatched set here. Also, I'm intentionally not rolling at this point the shield higher than level 12, and that's to keep his defense low, which should aid in stun targeting. But one of the reasons why I really wanted to make Bulwark my stun target despite the difficulties is because of his passive. He has a chance of debuff extension when hit, so especially on Affinity Clanboss, that should help with poison damage and keeping defense down and weaken up, as well as he has hit point burn, and I need to make sure I book him beforehand to make it a 100% chance of landing. But that's some extra damage. Usually hit point burn, I think even from rares, is more damaging overall than poison. Then my next champion, and I expect to have her to level 60 in the next couple 2-3 days, is Sawai Firstborn. She's known to hit pretty hard, as well as the fact that she puts on many debuffs, including weaken and decreased defense, and that's why I picked her to make sure all of them go in one place. I think I will turn off Utter Rampage in the UI, because with an unkillable team you don't need to worry about decrease attack. And that leaves the last slot open for a damage dealer. Going in, I'm going to start with Occult Brawler. Now, I personally am not a huge fan of Frozen Banshee. Yes, I use her, but what I really don't like about her is if you get a resist on the poison sensitivity, then her A1 doesn't land anything. Occult Brawler, on the other hand, has a good but not complete chance of placing poison on his A1, as well as with his passive. Additionally, I can only replace his gloves with another set that I have already rolled up that will get him to the speed that I need. So just to aid in tuning, and in case I'm having some difficulty, I have to go back to my traditional setup, I can put him back relatively easily. After I get Occult Brawler tuned, I'm planning on making 2 more affinity damage dealers, probably Eothar and then maybe Narmother Returned, just to deal with Affinity Clanboss, so I don't have to worry about someone with a weak affinity and getting weak hits there. So that is my plan. Check back in the next couple of days when I have the rest of the of the champions leveled, and I'll go through builds and exactly where I am, and then we will work on getting everything tuned. So this is Ezron signing off. Hopefully, if you're in the midst of building your own Unkillable Clanboss team, you'll find this interesting, and maybe I can help everyone work through some issues you might have.